All right, let's just jump into things, shall we? We're kicking off this morning with what I like to refer to as Feel Smart Burn. Got a Jeskai Tempo archetype here with a bunch of lightning bolts, a bunch of lightning helixes, and a couple of Seal of Fires. And we got some Snapcaster Mages to flash them back. We've got some Lurruses to flash back our Snapcaster Mages, yo dog. We've got some counter spells here in Archmage's Charm, Spell Snare, and Mystic Dispute. We've got some cantrips, and then on the sideboard we've got some hard creature removal to deal with larger threats like Death Shadow or Tarmogoyf, and then we've got a smattering of other counter spells for when our burn spells aren't particularly good removal as well. So let's go ahead and pop on into a league here with the Jeskai build and see how it goes. Interested to see how this compares to the Grixis variation that we had played somewhat recently. No, I really don't think so, Marty. I like, and the fact that so many people are saying that, like, that would be something they would do, like, I don't know if these people are, like, misbuilding their decks or just, like, wildly overvalue the impact of a 1/1. Like, that whole notion is rather absurd to me. But, like, the fact that those people have that opinion really frames to me why these people have such a hatred for the companion mechanic. Because if they genuinely think that a 7-mana 1/1 with no companion restriction is something they would want to play, their view of the current slate of companions we have just has to be completely unreasonable. Because, like, to think that that's something that's busted, or not even busted but playable, you can't have any opinion other than, like, these ones are busted. Yeah, card advantage means nothing if you're not drawing playable cards for the most part. Yeah. Yeah, and it came from, I don't know. I don't know, there's definitely merit about, like, old guard in games like Magic. Am I keeping this? My opponent has no companion. This is a redraw. I think I'm keeping this. I could go either way, though. He felt Kira as a companion for creatures. See, my experience has been the opposite on this school, and that's why I feel like I disagree. Like, as someone who's been, like, working on historic stuff, I've like worked on control decks where the 3/2 was basically never relevant. It was a complete free roll, but the 3/2 was never relevant, and I ended up cutting it to have a real board card. No, I don't delete my YouTube videos, Psychonaut. Yeah, and, like, people acting like they just have all these they don't, like, their sideboard slots don't matter is wild. All right, well, hopefully they neoform and not not Eldritch Evolution, so we can Mystic Dispute them. Yay! Isn't Magic fun? I would like to dedicate this game win to my eternally busted card, Lurrus of the Dream Den. My opponent never stood a chance here because I started with an 8th card in my hand. So, shoutouts to Lurrus of the Dream Den, making my opponent's deck unplayable. That is almost assuredly why they lost that game. Because I started with Lurrus, and it was incredibly unfair. Angry board like this, and just, like, hope we get a turn. What are we hitting with Disdainful Stroke? Yeah, Stroke counters Allosaurus Rider, and it counters Nourishing Shoal. Counters both of those things. And remember, the pitching 2 extra cards to Allosaurus Rider is part of putting it on the stack. So they lose 3 cards. And then this hand's a keep, right? Like, I'm definitely keeping Spell Snare land, I think. If I draw a second land, this hand is super reasonable. I only have 1 Force of Negation in the 75, because I think that card's pretty underwhelming on average in this format. Like, if you're not playing, like, against exactly this current opponent's archetype, it's very underwhelming, so... And again, this is Magic and Modern, and Magic's a lot like gambling, so we might just not get a turn. Perfect, just like we drew it up. Morning, Patreon. So, if they don't go for it next turn, I'm going to end step Flash and Snapcaster Mage. If they don't give me a reason, to use my mana, I'm going to Flash and Snapcaster Mage is the plan. Hey, thanks for the 12 months, Prototype. I guess there's merit to... Alright, I'm a liar. Because we drew the opt, I'm going to go ahead and opt and try and hit my land drop. Because if I hit my land drop, I can snap opt next turn. Hitting the land drop also lets me Spell Snare plus Sprite or Negate plus Snare. Both of which are appealing. You've Nourishing Shoals. You got it. Perfect. Johnny Goldmane. Thanks for the tier 1 sub. I appreciate that. Welcome to Hoaglandia. Hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you're at in the world. Let's take a peekaboo at what they've got going on. Okay, drawing a bunch of lands here is actually quite good. Today's swell. We woke up this morning and Jacob wanted to play some games on the Switch immediately, so we spent a little bit of time playing games before I ate breakfast, and then we ate some breakfast, and now I'm here. Yeah, it's been nice. Jake wasn't super into games for the first little bit, but he's definitely warmed up to them. I'm gonna keep the 3rd Spellstutter Sprite here. I might actually flash one of them into play just to speed up our clock. Hey, I appreciate that, Goldman. It's good to have you around. There's the Veil of Summer. So it could have been possible that I wanted to bottom this 3rd Sprite so I could work towards drawing more lands. Actually, because I'm expecting them to have a lot of anti-counterspell cards, if this doesn't draw a land, I'm going to draw 2 cards. Yeah, if they don't give me things to counterspell this turn, I'm going to draw 2 with Archmage's Charm, so I can try and hit my land drops. So our clock's pretty slow, so I want to have as much disruption as possible. Perfect. And now with this Bauble, I can actually get a little bit of a scry on here. So I can Bauble myself and then say, hey, I want to draw that Spellstutter Sprite, so I'm going to shock this in. if I saw a card on top of my deck I didn't want to draw, I would play the fetch land and shuffle it away before the Bauble draws it next turn. Okie doke. So we're definitely end-stepping a Spellstutter Sprite, assuming they don't give us anything to counterspell here. Our poker hand is stellar. You are not wrong. What was that? What was that, opponent? I missed it. You stuttered a little bit. Correct. Yeah, if we were playing paper, just like flip our hand over and just be like, well, we can keep playing, but like, you know, you let me know when this is good. Yeah, like a Pact of Negation they're thinking about here, or are they thinking about conceding? Are they giving us Spellstutter Sprite and Historic, asking the real questions? So if they Pact of Negation us here, nope, doesn't look like it. Counter your Veil, counter your Manamorphose, and this is sweet because we got a Sprite into play, and we didn't have to play it out for no value because they blinked. Give me Spellstutter and Bitter Blossom. I don't even think Bitter Blossom would be playable, if I'm being honest. They conceded to turn 1 Mystic Dispute in game 1, and then here I think I'm just sitting behind a wall of counter spells. I don't think there's a reason to play Lurrus out until my hand's more empty. Pretty sure they just can't win if I never tap out. When has a card been playable ever stopped me? That's true. That's true. I actually think Bitter Blossom would be a sweet one to put into Historic for that reason. Like, it's a sweet... I think iconic cards that probably aren't playable anyways are sweet additions to Historic. I think cards that people emotionally identify with, that they would like to play for sweet reasons, are good cards to put into that format. Upstairs. Alright, 7 turns, 6 counter spells, you know. Slow ride. Take it easy. I expect I really need to memorize the list offhand. Are vampires on the list of... Are vampires on the list of things coming in Jumpstart? Does anybody know? They are. Yeah, I bet we see some iconic ones. I bet we see some iconic ones in there. Okay, So they're pact of negationing my Sprite. So I'm going to let their pact resolve because I want them to have to pay for it next turn. So this way their pact resolves, and if it resolves, they have to pay 5 the following turn. And then they lose to the next counterspell. Can someone explain to me Jumpstart? It's basically a new player-friendly product to make intro Magic-style decks where you can mix and match. If you ever played the cardboard game or whatever you want to call it, Smash Up, it seems very similar to that, but with Magic cards. I believe the understanding is like there's going to be a bunch of different decks and you can take 2 separate ones and mix them together and have like a double tribal deck basically as a casual gameplay experience. And from a non-casual perspective, I'm excited because all of these cards that are in Jumpstart are coming to Magic Arena, and they'll all be historic legal, including brand new cards designed just for Jumpstart. And those brand new Jumpstart cards will be legal in Historic, Legacy, and Vintage, but they won't be legal in Pioneer, Modern, or Standard. So again, those new cards from that will be another differentiating feature for Historic, even once we have all of Pioneer on Arena. Yes, yeah, it's also going to add a bunch of cards that aren't currently on Arena. It's true. There are also, I assume there will be cards that aren't totally new Magic cards, but also aren't Pioneer legal. Chances one of those cards breaks Legacy, 100%. Was there? Can I speak to a certainty higher than 100? Bet. My opponent has declined to reveal a companion. I think I'm keeping. I have a cantrip and I have a few castable spells. Seems pretty disputable. Maybe I'm not supposed to dispute this because they could be a Teferi deck based on this start. What memes are getting old, Zach? The "my companion's not busted, Magic players are stupid" is going to be a take on this channel until Magic players stop being stupid. Which, for those of you that are new to the Magic community, that probably means it's going to be a while. Najo, thanks for the 17 months. I appreciate the tier 2. Welcome back. Thanks for keeping me around. Feels Magic, man. Feels Magic, man. The old need to draw a third land, Thought Scour past 2 lands, miss the land drop. Alright, little spell stutter, I believe in you. Just need to get cards out of my hand. Getting a 1-for-1 while I get cards out of my hand has an upside. I have been absorbed. I'm excited to mill 2 more lands and miss on a land drop again. Well, at least we didn't mill lands that time. Yikes. Yikes. Magic is a low variance game. Doo-da, doo-da. Bum 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 ba-da-da-dum. Sweet. Sweet. Perfect. Just like we drew it up. Now the real question is, are we snapcasting cantrips or lightning bolts? I think we're snapcasting cantrips at this point in the game. Yeah, the issue with standard right now is twofold. One, there's too many good cards in the format, and Yorion has no downside to it realistically. And two, well that's just rude. And two, the second issue with, oh, I could have snap disputed. That's what I should have done. The second issue with standard right now is that Agent of Treachery is a real dumb card. Too many easy ways to get Agent into play and Blanket. Tweets like my most recent Neil Shill brand continue to thin people who have crappy companion opinions off my Twitter timeline. It's really a huge net positive. There's nowhere to go but up when it comes to banning and blocking and muting. I don't mute. Muting isn't my thing. I prefer to block people to let them know that they've been stupid. I don't want them to be stupid in the mentions of my future posts. Send a strong message that their opinion was not okay for my timeline. At some point, I should probably use this, huh? I'm not quite sure when that point is. Mystic Dispute is so much better than Spell Pierce. It's kind of unreal. So this is definitely a Mystic Dispute and Negate matchup. I think this is probably a Lightning Helix out matchup. I think some amount of these probably come out too. Could be a Disdainful Stroke matchup. A question is, do I want some number of paths? Because they showed us multiple 5-mana Teferi. So I think I'm supposed to put some amount of path in my deck to like try and keep that from happening. Because I only have 3 Dispute, 2 Stroke, 2 Archmage Charm post board. Maybe I like keep maybe I keep a couple of seals in. I think I keep Bolt, right? Because I can Snap Bolt it. And I'll bring 1 path in. Brian, is that Brain Arsky? Thanks for the brand new tier 1 sub. Welcome to Hoaglandia. I think I like this. I don't think this is a Force of Negation matchup. I'm honestly not even sure I want this card in my 75. I'm always super underwhelmed by it. I'd rather just have like a 1-for-1 counterspell. Seeing's fine. It's got a bunch of redraws in it. We'll do the Bauble ourselves on one thing. Again, we see a card we like. We'll Spirebluff Canal. We see a card we don't like. We'll Scalding Tarn. Yeah, I agree, Zaparis. Force of Negation is a card that I've been consistently underwhelmed by since it was printed into this format. I think it's like a fun of, it's fine, but for the most part, it just like hasn't felt particularly good for me. Another Lightning Bolt. Don't want another Bolt. Looking for counter spells. Let's grab a Hallowed Fountain here. So we have white for Lurrus down the line. So again, I use the fetch land because Bauble's going to draw a card here. So I want to draw something that's not Lightning Bolt, so the fetch land shuffles. Is PTE better than Snare? I assume that they have some 2-mana counter spells. I also assume there's a high probability they have access to Snapcaster Mage in their 75. They also showed a Search for Azcanta. All of these are things that I would really like to Spell Snare. These are a few of my favorite things. I feel like if Force of Negation is a card you think you need to play in your fair blue deck, the format's probably rancid and you shouldn't be playing your fair blue deck anyways. Yeah, honestly, I kind of agree with that take. I think that's a super reasonable position to have. If this card is necessary, your deck's probably not playable. A lot of people have really like novel memories of like how cards like Force of Will work in Legacy, and the fact that Force of Negation does not counter creatures is such a huge downtick in power level from Force of Will. We're only on the second match, J-Man Dog, and so far we've cast our companion 0 times. We're 1-0, and we're up a game in the second match, and we've cast our companion 0 times. So at this point, my opponent's working their way up towards 5 mana, really looking to cantrip into something that lets us counter their 5 mana Teferi that we saw a couple copies of last game. So I'm going to be digging for Mystic Disputes and stuff like that. We have Bauble plus a fetch land here again, so we'll again play Bauble ourselves. There's a Mystic Dispute on top of our deck. Perfect. So this time we're not going to crack the Scalding Tarn because I would like to draw Mystic Dispute here. I actually really agree, Extras. Force of Will. Force of Will is a card that gets a pass in Legacy because the things it stops are more obnoxious than it. But I agree that Force of Will is an incredibly frustrating card to play against. Even playing fair Magic decks, like as someone who's played like more Dead Guy Ale than anybody should ever play in Legacy, Force of Will is a frustrating card to play against in that archetype too. Yeah. Force of Will being allowed to exist in Legacy is a thing that happens to make up for the fact that Wizards of the Coast doesn't actually manage Legacy with a ban list. If Legacy was managed appropriately with a ban list, a card like Force of Will would not be necessary in the format. In my opinion, decks that are basically based around, did my opponent have their turn 1 and did I mulligan to my Force of Will, those games of Magic aren't fun or interesting. Correct. Force of Negation, even when it's played for its alternative casting cost, still has a converted mana cost of 3. We're really good at drawing 4 Spellstutter Sprites today, chat. Probably going to be end-stepping one of these sprites here, just so we can start countering 2 mana spells and increase the speed of our clock. I mean, I'm not complaining. Sprite's pretty good in these matchups where we're drawing it. And again, like, I have this Lurrus over here, but the optimal thing to be doing here is not playing it. It's there as an eventuality that might come up. Not because I actually need it here. Well, notable that Lurrus doesn't let you cast spells on their turn, so Lurrus recasting Spellstutter Sprite isn't actually that useful a lot of the time. There's an Oust on top of my opponent's deck. That's a good one. Get Oust! We played a Grixis Spellstutter Sprite Lurrus deck recently too, and that one was also good. I think these Lurrus tempo decks seem reasonably competitive. I'm enjoying playing them. They've been a lot of fun. So we're going to dispute them here, and then we're going to snap dispute them when they pay for it. Mystic Dispute was such an incredible addition to these tempo decks for these control matchups. One mana leak is real good. This attack puts them to 4. And then with 3 sprites and a Snap Bolt in my hand, even if they deal with the board, they're pretty dead here. Hey, Dark Rider, thanks for the 13 months. Welcome back. Thanks for keeping me around. Made the mistake of playing Standard to do some dailies. Yeah. Standard is not in a great spot. I'm gonna do one standard League a day to work through my deck queue, but once that's done, I don't think I'm playing in, I don't know, maybe. I need to figure out if I want to play in the event next weekend. Okie doke. 2040 have cast our companion 0 times. This is probably a keep, right? I've got, what, 3 redraws here? I guess it depends on... It depends on if this is a matchup where these cards are live. If my burn spells don't have a text box. So, there's not a land on top of my deck here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and scour myself, because I don't really want to draw Spell Snare. Scour acting similarly to a... Scour acting similarly to a fetch land in terms of providing us a little bit extra selection. Astrolab, no companion, could be a lot of different things. Looks like a control deck. Gonna be another match where Mystic Disputes, punch the clock, and go to work. Honestly, there should probably be 4 disputes in our 75. That card's so obnoxiously good. Let's take this Helix and send it upstairs, set the tone of the match here. I was going to play out a Seal of Fire, but with the Snapcaster Mage drawn, I want to hold up Snap Snare / Snap Thought Scour this turn, I think. Yeah, maybe we'll get a match where we finally cast Lurrus. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how we beat this card game 1. Can I just concede? Hey, we'll do Bionic. If Magic wasn't your job, how much would you play casually? Well, I mean, considering before Magic was my job, I was traveling around the country to play lots of Magic the Gathering tournaments. Probably a lot is the answer. It costs 1 Texas Horror. Like, maybe I can race them here. Maybe. Seems pretty unlikely, though. This card's pretty impossible to race. We'll get to bring in some Tormod Crypts and some Path to Exiles post-board, and definitely try to be a little bit more grindy. Remember when I kept this hand, I said we have a chance if our... We would have a chance here if our Lightning Bolts and stuff had text, and this is definitely a matchup where that's not true. They do not have text in this matchup. So let's go ahead and let's attack for 2 to start, and then we'll get Lurrus down and start recasting Bauble. Yeah, Dispute and Tormod's Crypt is the answer for sure. And then we'll do the Bauble ourselves, Delio. Do this. Not interested in drawing another land here. If we're really fortunate, we'll draw a Mystic Dispute. With the second red source, we might be able to burn them out before they get to recasting Arrow. Should the Negates and the sideboard be Dovin's Vetoes? No, I don't think so. I think I'd rather have the added consistency. So probably can't kill them before Arrow comes back. We did cast Lurrus. We cast Lurrus and it drew us a card. It's gonna draw us a second card now, chat. It's wild. Things are getting cray up in here. Up in here. Up in here. Do 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 do. It's worth noting that if I had another red source here, we'd be better off. They're probably gonna crack this fetch land, but I want to draw for next turn anyways. There's a Verdict on top of their deck. Gross. Sick. Shuffled it. Psyched them out. Oh, probably because they're about to Field of Ruinous. Yeah, attacking our red source is real good. I actually don't have a basic mountain in my deck. Worth casting main phase up to look for the red source. I mean, obviously the answer to that question on my end is no. Feel free to explain why you disagree. Yep, getting Force negated. I mean, when we started this video, if you came in late, I described the deck as burn deck, which is accurate. Looking for a Mystic Dispute. Looking for a Mystic Dispute. I expect a lot of the places that are trying to end lockdowns early are going to end up reinstituting lockdowns once they have surges in cases. If you think it's time to end the lockdown where you live and you're in the United States, you should consider that Ireland has closed all bars through August 10th. If you want to understand how serious people that understand the science are taking this. From the Netherlands. I'm not familiar with the situation in the Netherlands. You might be okay there. Places in the United States are definitely not ready, though. Christ in Georgia. Yep. Yep. Alright, if they have another force, we're probably dead. Otherwise, we might be able to slog through this. Maybe. Our Lurrus drew 2 cards, but my opponent's keeping parity, no problem, because Uro is just as good, if not better than most companions. Their Uros gained them 9 life this game. They're currently at 6. I guess I'll kill Teferi. Yeah, my commentary is mostly focused on the United States. I'm not super familiar with the responses places in Europe have been having, because that doesn't as directly impact me, and there's only so much news I can take in without going insane. Oh, they just get to re-escape Uro now, right? That's how this works. And again, my companion did not matter because they had other sources of card advantage that were just better. So trim the burn spells, bring in Path and Crypt to deal with Uro. Gonna bring in Negates and the extra Dispute. Did they show me anything I could Spell Snare? They probably have some Snapcasters, right? I'm gonna leave 1 in and leave a third bolt. You think they have Codal? Okay, yeah, they almost assuredly have Codal, right? Okay, I'll leave the snares in. Yeah, Baleful Strikes. Hey, engineer. Thanks for the 29 months and thanks for the generous tier 2 resub. I appreciate that. Welcome back. Sand looks reasonable. That valuation of Lurrus is harsh. It didn't pull us through, but it was decent. Yeah, Lurrus was fine. It's weird to me how people act like these formats like Modern and Legacy aren't just collections of all the best cards. Like, that's how these non-rotating formats work. There's so many cards that are legal, only the best cards see play. And that's regardless of if that best card is a card from the most recent set, or if it's a card from 26 years ago that's legal. Lightning Bolt or Brainstorm in 40+% of decks, nobody bats an eye. Lurrus in 40% of decks, better start crying. Noble Hierarch in 40% of decks, that's fine. Lurrus, definitely not okay. Morning, Dwight. This is match 1. This is match 3. We've been live for almost an hour. But I already own the old cards. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Is their mana awkward enough that I can justify negating this? I feel like I can. How prevalent in Modern is Ur? I have no idea. One of the other things you need to understand is that we don't have good Magic data. A majority of the Magic data for formats like Modern come from the artificially diversified Magic the Gathering online leagues. So, like, how much is Lurrus being played, how much is Uro being played, how much is Bolt being played? We don't actually have good figures on those things, which is something that a lot of people don't like to talk about. You know, and this doesn't surprise me because it came from someone that has been subbed to this channel for a while. So, you know, they've been subbed for a while. They're probably a pretty reasonable person. I actually heard what I feel is the first good faith argument that I've heard presented against like what Lurrus has done to these formats, and that the person Rogue in the subs Discord brought up the discussion of there's just a kind of generic change fatigue with regards to Legacy recently, and probably Modern too, where like change in general in these formats isn't inherently bad for most people, but rapid fire change where the format changes every 3 months drastically, that's not what these formats are generally supposed to be about for the players. And I think I definitely empathize with that take. Like, as someone who likes working on a specific deck and tuning and optimizing, that resonated with me. Like, it's not that things changed that's the problem. It's the rate at which they've been changing for the better part of the last year that they find to be the problem. And I think that is the part that where people who are just like want to repeat bad talking points, that's what they're trying to articulate but are failing to do. It's not that Lurrus is strictly creating bad gameplay patterns or is unhealthy. It's that Lurrus represents another large change to these formats that are supposed to be not supposed to be constantly changing, but we've had Modern Horizons and War of the Spark and just all these other sets that have happened recently that have been such large changes. And that really hit home for me with like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's not just someone screaming from the rooftops to scream from the rooftops. I get and understand that take. Like, if Modern Horizons and some of these other things had been like spread out a little bit, it wouldn't be a big deal. But the fact that they were all just like bang, bang, bang right on top of each other, and that's not what non-rotating format players are generally looking to experience, I understand that. All right, what am I doing here? I have a couple of sequencing decisions. We've got our companion here. I could Sprite Dragon, smash with everything. They trade Ice Fang for my 3/3. They take 3 down to 7. I could Lurrus, play Bauble, draw a card. Unfortunately, my 6 land was tapped, so I can't Lurrus, Snapcaster Mage, Lightning Bolt this Ice Fang. Oh, it doesn't have Death Touch, does it? Oh, that's a good thing to point out. I'm just so used to this thing being Baleful Strix with Flash. You're right. Huh? I think that means I want a Lurrus. My sequencing here is crap. Should have cast the dragon before the Lurrus, obviously. Mistakes were made. Who's got 2 thumbs and is excited to get Supreme Verdict? This guy right here. If they have Verdict, they'll snap block the 4/4. Really? Okay, so the no blocks there to me says they don't have Verdict in hand just yet. And they're not drawing it, so that's good. Hopefully they're just dead here. Or they have Verdict and they just didn't block last turn. Oh, Cryptic Command. Okay, sure. I agree. This card's great. Love it. Love it. I think I'm happy with how I boarded. Couple of bolts felt good. Maybe this is too many paths. I'll split this in the other direction. Yeah, Lurrus flashing back Snapcaster Mage this week. Because I have Tormod's Crypt in a way to deal with Uro as well. Think you need Path for Uro? Yeah, I think leaving a couple in is fine. I also think, like, pathing Ice Fang in a pinch is okay. And, like, if I'm cutting the paths, I'm, like, only bringing in burn spells, and burn spells are kind of middling in this matchup, too. They're, like, only good for, like, being a little bit of reach. I don't want to overload on that. Too many burn spells is not good here. Game 1 was a good example of having too many burn spells and not enough answers to Uro. I think 4 answers to Uro is probably good. I agree, Italy Perfect. Since Ikoria release, as someone who's played Modern off and on for the last, year and a half, 2 years, the quality of gameplay in Modern post Ikoria release is the best it's been for me personally in years. This is probably the most fun I've had playing this format since honestly, probably since Splinter Twin was banned. This probably isn't keepable, right? I guess I want to hit land drops in this matchup. These are randoms, though, is the issue. So, like, if these draw lands, I just die. I'm supposed to mulligan this. This hand's fine. Not amazing, but fine. I would love it if they unban Twin and Pod. I think if people genuinely think this card's too present, they should unban Twin and Pod. I think that would be the best way to shrink this card's metagame share. Unban Twin and Pod. I would love a Mystic Dispute. And again, if there was a card on top of my deck I didn't want to draw, I would Thought Scour myself and get rid of it. Yes, I am saying that fair decks getting powerful tools to encourage more people to play fair decks makes the format better on average. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's my story. That's my story. Ice Fang resolves. Got a lot of options here, chat. Hey, Bushoes, thanks for 16 months. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're doing Jeskai in all formats to start today. We get Twin and Pod Historic, right? Sure, I'd be okay with banning Bauble too. I've been a pretty big proponent of get rid of all the free spells in Modern for a long time. I think cards like Street Wraith are offensive too. If you would have given me total control of the ban list to just do whatever I please, I'd have banned Bauble and Street Wraith a while ago. I'm just casting Lurrus while they don't have a counterspell up here. We could get Path, but we do at least get to draw a card, and getting an extra land from a Path here is not a big deal. It's kind of okay. There's an Uro on top of their deck. Gross. Yes, Manamorphose is another card that is similar to Bauble and Street Wraith. Big agree. Feeling pretty dead here. These Ice Fang Cuddles just like staring us down. There's another Sprite on top of my deck. Yeah, it's probably fine. Yeah, this Field Arena is just a Stone Rain. I'm going to go ahead and pack it in and get to the next game. In a twist of fate that does not come to a surprise to me, as someone who understands how to evaluate Magic the Gathering cards, my companion deck was easily outvalued by a pile of Urros and other cards that generate card advantage. Because again, companions being an 8th card in players' hands are not that big of a deal, because games that are about value in Magic already have lots of absurd cards that generate lots of value that can easily overcome you getting one extra card in your games. Thanks for the 3/4 of a year, Mark. I appreciate that. Mac? It's Mac, not Mark, maybe? We'll just say Olympics. I'm confident the second word is Olympics. Modern is hostile to the 4th card in your hand mattering, let alone the 8th. Big agree. Big agree. I had responded this to Edel on Twitter the other day. Like, I really would love to live in whatever world these people are living in, where, like, most of your matches of Modern come down to every resource and card advantage mattering. Because in my experience, that's not the case in a lot of the matches. There's lots of really aggressive and combo decks in this format. And past that, the games where card advantage does matter, a lot of the times they're decks like that one we just played against there, where they have these really powerful cards like Uro and like Ice Fang, where like they're gonna generate more card advantage than we do. Edel's a real sharp individual. Have we played against any companions in this league? It's actual 0 so far, right? Another thing, and this is actually, if someone would like to go back and check, because I'm interested in the results. People talking about the percentage of Lurrus in top 32s and stuff recently. What was the percentage of Jace the Mind Sculptors and Bloodbraid Elves in top 16, top 32s in tournaments in the 2 to 3 weeks after those cards were unbanned? Because as someone that played through that format, it was huge, if I recall, because people just wanted to play with new cards. And then they started realizing, as other folks went back to playing just good Modern decks, that Jason Bloodbraid weren't actually very good. That's my memory of that format, that time in Modern. But again, it'd be interesting to go back and like look at what the actual data says, because my opinion could definitely be skewed. My memory could be wrong. I'm human. But that's how I was playing Modern full time when those unbans happened. Like that was the only format we were playing on this channel. Do you think historic gameplay would benefit from fetches? No, I think fetches suck. I think not only do fetches suck because of the shuffling aspect, but I think fetches suck because fixing being too good is not a good thing. I think if you wanted to improve the mana in Historic, I would like to see it done. I actually think Pioneer has really good mana bases, and I'd like to see the lands that we have in Pioneer rounded out. I would like to see fast lands get printed in full. I would like to see creature lands get printed in full. Those would be my wish list. We're probably dead here again. I think Wizards of the Coast hit it perfect. I think Fabled Passage hit it perfectly on the head. I think Fabled Passage is the perfectly balanced fetch land. For those that are wondering what just happened there, we've been playing Modern for over an hour. I probably only have time for one more real match. My deck can never beat Amulet Titan because Amulet Titan is one of the dozens of decks in Modern that doesn't give a flying fluck about my Lurrus. So I'm just going to concede and move on because my deck can't win that matchup. Fair decks like what we're playing can't win against. Can't win against that. Yeah, not only, and like, even if you have counter spells, they have Cavern of Souls, so your counter spells just don't matter. Your counter spells largely just don't matter. Hey, they have a companion too, look at that. 1 in 5. We played against another companion deck in 1 in 5 matches here today. And again, even that, I'm not a fan of that framing. I think framing it as companion decks versus not companion decks is nonsense. It's like saying Lightning Bolt deck versus Lightning Bolt deck. Implying that Burn playing a companion and Jund playing a companion have similar play patterns is nonsense. They don't. You know what, Turkin? A number of the Burn decks in Modern, because they're playing Lurrus, have stopped playing Eidolon. I've seen a number of people stop playing Eidolon, and like, I'll take that as a player. Like, I'd much rather play against Burn without Eidolon. GP Phoenix was the first GP after Bloodbraid Elf and Jace were unbanned, and 50% of the top 8 was on Bloodbraid Elf or Jace, sure. This probably doesn't bode well for us. Playing this waiting game is not particularly good against Yorion. We definitely need to be the beatdown in this matchup. See if we get punished for not holding up dispute here. Feels bad, man. So next turn, I get to bolt this. I think the play next turn is bolt this Lurrus Bauble, I think is my plan. Let's start with this and see where we go. Feeling kind of dead. They've got Sword of Feast and Famine and Batterskull and Yuri in here still. And they're at 20, more importantly. Like, they just have all the time in the world here. I think this Jeskai build felt a little bit worse than the Grixis build. I've not felt like the Lightning Helixes and the white cards have been super meaningful. And I'm definitely, like, especially here, like, super missing Culligan's command. And I don't think we can win at this point. We just weren't able to apply any pressure. I don't know. I mean, like, outside of, like, exactly the burn matchup, where is Lightning Helix good, right? Like, I even, like, look at how I feel like I want to board in this matchup, right? I just don't want Helix, and, like, these 6 removal spells are plenty. Feels like about where I'm at. I don't really want Path to Exile. I would love a K-Command here, though. Hey, Tempest XLT, thanks for the brand new Prime support. I appreciate that. Welcome. Thanks for keeping me around. You can always see what I'm typing on Twitter 30 seconds later by going to my Twitter account. Feel free. This hand doesn't really do anything, right? I guess it plays Snapcaster on 3. That's probably fine. The Spellstutter's relevant. Yeah, Spellstutter's been great. The white cards have not been. This deck being Jeskai as opposed to Grixis. The Grixis build was much better. Nah, I just don't like to pull up all the things as I'm tweeting them anymore, because I often read things back these days and decide not to post them. And having the angry Twitch chat there sitting there egging me on is not conducive to making good decisions and not sending tweets that are bad. I also frequently do my first draft through just completely unfiltered and write lots of swear words and nasty things at people that I think are stupid, and then I go back and backspace those out and make the tweet a little bit less hostile to people who aren't intelligent. Yeah, we're pretty done. All right, so only went 2 and 3. Like I said, I think that set really kind of convinced me that the white cards weren't worth it. I wanted to give Helix a try, but this is a base blue-red deck at its core, regardless of what your splash is. And I think the utility from things like Culligan's Command add a little bit more value than things like Lightning Helix. Helix makes like the creature matchups and almost assuredly the burn matchup a little bit better. But Culligan's Command, I feel like the way this deck is constructed, and you never know this from the way people are act on Twitter, but I actually think the way this deck is constructed is a pretty bad matchup against decks that are looking to be grindy. Like the Bant control deck we lost to, that last blue-white deck, I think those decks really do a good job of grinding us out and not having a good way like Culligan's Command to generate additional 2-for-1s felt really bad. One big takeaway that I have in general is that Mystic Dispute continues to be a card that's super impressive in every format. I think there's enough blue cards running around in most formats right now, honestly, that Mystic Dispute's probably better than Spell Pierce in a lot of situations. So I think if you are playing a blue deck with some counter spells in it, you probably want Mystic Disputes in your 75. All right, what are we doing? We're going to dive on into some Arena for the remainder of the stream today. We're going to kick things off slogging through a touch of Standard, and then we're going to roll on into a bunch of Historic. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Thanks for hanging out today.